What's up, my guys and geeks? A few months ago, we got the 5th movie in the Hunger Games franchise, adapted from the 4th book in the franchise, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. And I've recently read all the Hunger Games books, so today I'm going to be ranking my top 5 favorite Hunger Games characters from my least favorite to the most favorite. Before I get into this video, remember that this list is just my list. It's not the right list by any means. Be sure to give me your opinion in the comments down below. And if you go on to enjoy this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell for more awesome Geek Space content. So in 5th place, we have Cinna.
But if I could, I'd bet on you.
This is Katniss's stylist from the Capitol, the guy who's kind of responsible for her entire look, her entire personality, and really responsible for a lot of the marketing that allows her to emerge as the victor of her first round of the Hunger Games. And Cinna's just a really enjoyable character because you get to see how much he cares about his work, how innovative and creative and wickedly intelligent he is, how he's able to create so many new trends and ideas that just push the boundaries of what fashion has to offer.
It's not real fire. These suits are built so you won't feel a thing.
But you also get to see his more human side. You get to see how he's not quite as into the physical modifications as a lot of the other people in the Capitol. You get to see him build a connection with Katniss and they actually become friends, and how they actually grow to care for each other as friends. And you get to see how Cinna kind of takes on a confidant or mentor role to Katniss, and it really makes it all the more worse when he's taken by peacekeepers right before Katniss enters the 75th Hunger Games. No! And you later learn that he was tortured for being a sympathizer with Katniss and for being involved with Katniss as she was kind of subtly rebelling against the Capitol, and for being involved in her rebellion at the end of the 74th Hunger Games. And ultimately, I think that he's just such an interesting character. You enjoy getting to watch him so much. And you also really feel for when he is killed and taken by the peacekeepers, and that upsets you because you've gotten to see so much of him and how much promise and potential he had. But next up, in 4th place, we've got Katniss Everdeen, the protagonist of the series herself.
And if we burn, you burn with us!
And Katniss is a fun character. I enjoy getting to read her. Obviously, since she's the point of view main character, you get to see most of the character development and most of the expansion of the series through her. But there are also times when she's not my favorite, when she tends to get in her own way through her own rationale or her own actions, and tends to kind of complicate things for other people around her through her sheer stubbornness or through her sheer personality. But I do think it's so interesting, kind of the dilemma she's placed in and the self-sacrificial nature she has, that she volunteers for the Hunger Games in order to protect her younger sister.
I volunteer as tribute!
And how you see a lot of the times the choices she makes are in an effort or in an attempt to protect other people, and how she really hates whenever she's vulnerable or is the one that has to be protected. But just overall, a very interesting and absolutely enjoyable character. But next up, in 3rd place, we've got Coriolanus Snow.
It won't work. Fear does not work as long as they have hope.
And Snow is an interesting character because he's such a kind of terrifying villain in the original trilogy, because you see how sharp and intelligent he is, and you get to kind of understand just how much control he's able to exert over all these other people, and how utterly the peacekeepers and the people in the Capitol fall in line with and believe what he's saying. And you also see a very interesting dynamic between him and Katniss, where he establishes in their first face-to-face meeting that they're never going to lie to each other. He says that, and then he holds true to that.
I thought we'd agreed never to lie to each other.
So he's an absolutely terrible person, but he also seems to have some kind of standard, some kind of honor some level to which he will not sink. And we even see that in the very end of the series, where he's suspected to be the one that bombed all the Capitol children, but in reality he reveals that it was actually not him, that he was actually being framed for this, and because he's promised to always tell Katniss the truth, you believe him. But then also his character is helped so much by the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and how you get to see his beginnings and you get to see his mentality and how he's not necessarily ill-intentioned at first, but obviously a lot of his mindset and his view is shaped by the traumatic events early in his life during the dark days, during the uprising against the Capitol, and how that information, how those experiences kind of lead him to come to such a position where he's making a lot of decisions in an attempt to gain favor, in an attempt to prove himself and to get the glory and satisfaction that he really wants, but how that ends up kind of leading to all these self-destructive actions that end up stripping away a lot of the things he cares about. He ends up losing his friend Sejanus. He ends up losing his friendship and relationship with Lucy Gray because he's taking so many actions in an effort to prove himself to the Capitol and to achieve that power that he ultimately values above anything else. But next up, in second place, we have Finnick Odair.
Remember who the real enemy is.
And Finnick's an interesting character, because when you're first introduced to him, he seems like this standoffish jerk. And really, from the way Katniss portrays him, he's just another conceited product of the Capitol, just another example of the corruption of the Hunger Games. But then as you get to proceed in the story, you see that he actually is an example of the corruption caused by the Capitol and the Hunger Games, but in a very different way. You get to discover how he was exploited and leveraged by President Snow and by the Capitol and the people in the Capitol, and how he was used time and time again, and how he really had no option in what he was being forced to do if he wanted to protect the people he cared about. And you get to see the actions he takes in order to preserve the people he cares about and in order to help defeat the Capitol, and ultimately he ends up making the ultimate sacrifice and giving his life to defeat President Snow and take down the Capitol because of all they've put him through and all the trauma that he's been forced to undergo at such a young age. But in first place, my favorite Hunger Games character of all is Peeta Mellark.
Because she came here with me.
And Peeta's just such an interesting character because you get to see him go from this quiet, kind of timid, more seemingly shy character at the beginning of the series, and you get to see him grow and develop. You get to see him have to make the incredibly tough choices time and time again in order to try to get Katniss to win the Hunger Games and in order to try to see her ultimately succeed. And you get to see how he sacrifices himself time and time again. And then you get to see in Catching Fire how really Katniss wants him to be the one that's protected this time, that she's trying to arrange things, but he absolutely refuses to let that be the situation. And ultimately, because of his actions and because of Haymitch's actions and the actions of the people around them, ultimately, Peeta ends up being captured by the Capitol and taken back and ends up going through utter torture in Mockingbird and ends up being brainwashed and turned into almost a totally unrecognizable person because of the sheer torture and torment that he's going through. But you also get to see him fight through that and ultimately prevail and come out on the other side and ultimately get the happy ending because he was so continually dedicated to helping others and being selfless that when the time came, other people were willing to be patient with him and help him.
Real or not real?
So that's why Peeta is my favorite Hunger Games character of all time. But alright, those are my top 5 Hunger Games characters. Be sure to give me your list in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit that notifications bell for more awesome Geek Space content. If you want to see my top 5 Star Wars characters, you can click on this side of the screen. And if you want to see my top 20 Harry Potter characters, you can click on this side of the screen. But you've only got 3 seconds because this video is about to end. Adios.